Can AI improve your writing skills? Well, it depends on who you ask, but I recently underwent an experience that really made me think about this question. And I came up with some conclusions about my own writing that might not be what you'd expect. Now, a common criticism that I get on this channel all the time is that AI will make you lazy or not a good writer, or at least kind of prevent you from becoming better. And while I think most people who say this don't really understand how AI works and that it is essentially a different medium than traditional writing, just like photography is a different medium from illustration, I did pay some attention to a lot of that criticism. Because for those who don't know, I'm about the most storytelling obsessed person that I know. Few things are more exciting to me than stories, and I get very granular. I'm probably the most granular and into the weeds person that I know, certainly more than most. And it's always been my goal to continue to grow as a storyteller until, like, say 20, 30 years from now, I'm considered one of the best in the world. Not because I want the fame, but because I truly want to master this craft. It's like everything that I want in my career is all focused on storytelling. So if there was even a chance that AI could make me less of a storyteller to get in the way of that progression, I clearly wanted to figure that out. And so that's why in my school group, the Story Hackers, I actually initiated this challenge to write a short story every quarter without AI and submit that story to the Writers of the Future. For those who don't know, the Writers of the Future is a quarterly competition where you submit a short story, and it has to be in a speculative fiction, so fantasy, science fiction mostly. And you submit a short story, and it's this huge competition. Thousands of people enter it every year. And as part of our challenge, I made it clear that, like, we're not trying to win this thing necessarily. The reason we were doing it was to get practice writing without AI in addition to writing with AI, just to give us maybe a little bit of an edge on those people who are just using AI and not putting any human effort into it whatsoever, which, by the way, you don't need to worry about those people, because anybody who uses AI and puts effort into it will have way more success than the person who just uses AI without any human effort. So all you have to do is just put in some effort, and you're going to have 3 times as great of results, and that will just automatically help balance out the market and everything so that the good stuff rises to the top and all of that. But whatever. So in the Story Hacker group, we all did this challenge where a whole bunch of us went through and actually wrote a story by ourselves and submitted it to the Writers of the Future. And I actually discovered something very interesting while I was going through this process. So it so happened that I had an unfinished story. I had written the first quarter of it, roughly about the first 25%. And that quarter, I'd written that a couple of years ago, like before AI was really a thing. And I'd written it myself, obviously. And I decided, because I don't like having unfinished things lying around, I decided I was just going to finish that story. It wasn't my best story. I didn't really anticipate that it would win anything, but I wanted to finish it at the very least, and then get some practice writing again, and then save my better ideas for the next challenge, which is in December. And so I did that, and went over the stuff that I had done the first 25%, and then wrote out the rest of it. And I learned a few things about myself while we were doing this. It had actually genuinely been a long time since I had written fiction. I write nonfiction myself all the time, but fiction, it had been a while since I'd written actual fiction the manual way. I dictated some of it. I typed some of it, but you get it, right? It had been a while. Because most of the time I'm writing nonfiction myself, or I'm writing fiction with the help of AI. The first thing I noticed is while I was writing, I was dealing with some pretty severe, self-attacks, if that makes sense, where I was telling myself just how bad this writing was as I was writing with it. And actually kind of like it was a reminder, because I had felt that way a lot in the past writing my books and things. And just looking back on it, I was like, well, it's no wonder I burned out, because I burned out in 2019 and it lasted years. It was really AI that got me out of it and started producing fiction again. It's no wonder I burned out, because I was incredibly hard on myself, and those instincts were coming back as I was writing it. I was just like, this is awful. This is terrible. You're a terrible writer, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? That was the first thing I noticed. And by the way, if you are like that, chances are it's not nearly so bad. And I know a lot of authors who feel that way as they're writing, but when they go back to edit it, they're like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought. Or it's the opposite. You might be the opposite when you're writing it out and you're like, this is amazing. And then you go through and you revise it and you're like, this is awful. Usually authors have one of those two scenarios going on. But for me, I was like being really hard on myself as I was writing, and I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. And, you know, we as humans do not do things that cause us pain long term. It's just not something we do. The only way we're going to do something that causes us pain is if we're running from something that is even more painful, or we're going towards something that is more pleasurable long term, you know, having like the foresight to do something that's painful in the short term for long-term games, like going to the gym. So it's no wonder that I burned out a number of years ago, because I was not getting that long-term pleasure, and I was instead giving myself a lot of pain while writing. But then I finished writing the remaining 75% of this short story. I wrote it in about a week. And what I learned was really interesting, happened when I was editing. When I was going through and editing, I used to hate editing, okay? You guys got to understand, like, I hated editing. Once I had finished writing the thing, I was just so done with it, I wanted to move on. But as I was going through and editing, I found I was flying through it, and I was loving the process. So somehow I was loving the editing process more than I was before, and the amount of things I was changing and the amount of improvements I was making, even though the text itself was not actually that bad, I was much better as an editor. Like, I could tell that from years ago when I had written some books and was going through and revising it, the revision I did back then was cursory at best. This time it was much more thorough. It was much more appropriate and detailed. And basically, bottom line is, I could tell I had grown a lot as an editor. And this makes sense, because when you're writing with AI, you do a lot of editing. At least if you're writing with AI and trying to produce something of quality work, you're going to be doing a lot of editing. And I thought it was absolutely amazing just how much that part of my skills had improved. And then I actually went through and started reading the whole thing through a couple of times. I did 2 or 3 passes after the whole thing was finished. And was looking, because I was in a unique situation where I had written the first part of the story a long time ago, really a couple of years ago, and the second part of the story just recently. I could kind of get a sense of the difference in my writing style and my writing skill by looking at the two juxtaposed against each other. And even though I had been really hard on myself in writing these last 75% of the story, I could tell the quality of it was definitely quite a bit better than the first little bit that I had written previously. Now, of course, I edited that part and brought it up to a higher level a little bit. Certainly, it was not like the best thing that I've ever written, and it did not win Writers of the Future, which is fine, because my goal is to improve as a writer, and there's literally thousands and thousands of people that submit to Writers of the Future every quarter. So the goal is not to win. The goal is to get better. But that first part was definitely less solid than the second and the remaining part of that story. So what do I get out of this? My conclusion has been that AI has helped me, at least, to be a better storyteller, but just not in the way I thought. I do feel like my prose improved a little bit, but not as much as my editing had. My editing improved quite a bit. I certainly don't think that my prose suffered. Definitely not. I don't think that being an author who uses AI somewhat heavily in his process has actually made my prose worse. Now, that said, it probably could be better if I spent more time writing prose, and that's why I'm going to continue to do these challenges to try and have time to practice those things. but it didn't get worse. That much was absolutely plain just by comparing the before and the after. And on top of that, I was absolutely, like, beyond any doubt, a better editor than I had been before. And add to that the fact that I've heard from many others in my community that it's helped them become better storytellers as well. It's perhaps less helpful for like a sentence by sentence part of the writing process, but it does help with bigger picture elements of storytelling. There's no doubt about that, especially if you're putting in any sort of effort at all and you want to actually produce something that's good. You need to learn those bigger picture elements so that you can, walk the AI along with you. And it also helps with learning to be a good editor. And that's at least in my experience. Let me know what you've experienced working with AI. Does anything that I've said resonate with you, or does your life experience challenge anything that I've said? I would really like to know. Like, I'm just giving you what has worked for me and my own personal experience, not necessarily what's true for everybody. If you're interested, there's a link to my community down below if you want to know more about this and the other challenges we do. We're doing a book in a month challenge coming up in November, and December we'll do a Writers of the Future challenge again. So check that out, and I will see you in the next video.